Hey everyone, what's up? What's going on? My name's Joe, and this is How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? A now bi-monthly drunk movie review podcast. And on this week's episode, we're going to be reviewing 2019's Dumbo. We have no real updates or announcements this week, besides that bombshell we dropped on you last episode. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I do recommend you check out the first few minutes of our Us review. Both Mike and I did the intro, and we announced that we are going to officially be ending the How Many Fingers podcast later this summer. I know it's a bummer, and again, we do get more into that in the intro, but starting next episode, we're going to be kicking off what Mike and I have been referring to as the HMF Farewell Tour, where we'll be cramming as many of our favorite guests as we can into the remaining episodes. We hope we can make these last few podcasts as entertaining and funny and insightful as we possibly can. But yeah, more announcements on that to come, but for right now, we're reviewing 2019's Dumbo. Enjoy. Hey everyone, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, featuring two guys getting ram-squaddled to reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And thank you to Zaradian, not quite sure, on Twitter for that synonym suggestion. Definitely a unique one.
It is, yeah.
I didn't even make that up. He found that up as one of the actual synonyms for being drunk.
Yeah, he posted like a
meme. A screenshot of.
Something on our Twitter that we retweeted. It's pretty funny.
English language is weird.
It is. But how many words did it say? I mean, do you know off the top
of your head? It was like 200, 201 or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a lot. No, I thought it was even like 3,000 or something like that. And he's like, LOL, 3,000 episodes, I guess. At least does he know.
That's going to take too long to navigate to it. Joke's on you.
We appreciate the sentiment, Zaradian.
But yeah. Joe, what are we drinking this week?
Well, I bought Twisted Tea, which we've drank before, but this is half and half. So it's kind of a Arnold Palmer situation. Which
it's a hard Arnold Palmer.
Hard
Arnold. Hot Arnold. Hey Vince, I think Arnold's getting kind of hot over there. Maybe we should let one of the hookers with it. This is my turtle from Entourage.
Hey Vince, why didn't you buy Arnold a Ducati?
All right, let's dig in.
It's not as good as the original Twisted Tea. I actually like Twisted Tea, but
Twisted Tea is a great camping drink.
Oh yeah,
like when you're on like a weekend camping trip. Mm-hmm. It's like it's besides like coffee. Like when you're in like the early day of like after drinking a lot the night before, you're like, well, I want to get started again, but I'm not quite ready for a bunch of like crappy beers again. It's like it's got some flavor to it, but there's still some alcohol in there.
Yeah, I like this. This is definitely kind of meet in the middle between like me and Sabri, because she doesn't really like beer. So like having this, even though I don't like isn't this like grain alcohol or whatever the
malt?
Yeah, malt. But it's good. It's refreshing. Like I like always was like, I don't like that's gonna taste like Mike's Hard Lemonade. Like I don't really want any part of that. And then I had one like outside, like a hot summer day. I was like, this is refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Twisted.
And we also got,
I don't know if you guys saw
Ronas on the side.
I don't know if you guys saw the new Joker trailer, but it's pretty twisted. Ooh, I can't get enough variations of the Joker character. Looks
just gotta keep going back to that well. We're not quite finished yet.
I know I've seen his origin story quite a few times now, but I just can't get over how twisted the Joker really is as a character.
I gotta know how he got those scars. It was from pulling on his face too much to make himself smile.
Oh man, and there's young Bruce Wayne's dad. Fucking Alfred's in it. I hope Alfred fucking kicks the Joker's butt. Tyler Durden's in it. The guy from Clockwork Orange is in it. It's gonna be completely twisted anti-hero. Fucking Walter White Heisenberg, maybe.
Hot Topic is coming back, baby. Gonna resurrect Hot Topic.
Speaking of Hot Topic, Tim Burton directs a Dumbo.
You want
surprisingly,
to read that?
This film is pretty devoid of any Hot Topic.
Yeah, this was not
elements.
Hot Topic Tim Burton at all. How are they going to sell T-shirts?
Hot Topic's board members are like, "What the fuck? I thought we had something here. We've been paying you for years, Tim. We had Dumbo stockings ready to go. What are the girls gonna wear now?"
I keep laughing in the chair. I don't know if you can hear my chair squeaking. Of course, now it's not doing it when I'm trying to do it for the podcast listeners to hear, but that's not a human noise. That's the chair squeaking. But Joe, do you want to read that IMDb description, and I'll get into some of my notes about Dumbo?
A young elephant whose oversized ears enable him to fly helps save a struggling circus. But when the circus plans a new venture, Dumbo and his friends discover dark secrets beneath its shiny veneer. Wow. How about that?
I don't know if that's true.
It's like poetic compared to the movie.
Dumbo (parentheses 2019) is a live-action adaptation of Disney's 1941 animated film of the same name, which was based on a novel by Helen Aberson and Harold Pearl. Dumbo is the first of 4 live-action Disney remakes coming out in 2019. We've also got Aladdin, Lion King, and I don't know if this is necessarily a remake, even though they include it in this list, but Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, because did we ever have a Maleficent standalone animated movie? And we've already had the Maleficent live action movie, and this is just a sequel to that. So I guess just a live action remake of an originally animated character.
It's probably just live action Disney movies or live action Disney movies.
Well, there's a lot of live action Disney movies coming out because they own Marvel now, and
that's fucking
Star Wars.
Disney gives me a headache just like thinking about it.
Think about how much fucking money they make.
Or just like even their I don't know. We'll get into it. Yeah. But I mean they've got, I mean, we announced 2 weeks ago now that we were coming to an end, the podcast. It's very sad, and it was definitely a large chunk, or it was like a chunk of our 20s and is defining era of our creativity and everything. It's also like the movie industry itself is like depressing, and to continue I challenge you to go to the Wikipedia like article that displays like the chart of like not just from this year, but just the fucking pipeline they've got, like that's ready to spew out like maybe like 20 live action remakes of like previous animated classics that they have. And it's just going to dominate the box office next to all the Marvel films and just all the other fucking junk they own. And it's just,
the whole thing like kind of makes me angry, like because a lot of the ones that they're remaking are like they're very beloved, and they don't necessarily like need remakes because they were kind of just perfect as animated movies. Like, you look at like Lion King, and like I look at that and I'm like, what can you really improve on in like Lion King?
Right.
Like, what are they going to do that's going to bring something new to this? Same thing with like Aladdin, you know, even though like Little Mermaid's like not really up my alley growing up as a boy, like I can imagine that was probably a pretty perfect movie for like a girl growing up with the Disney era.
Oh, definitely.
I just don't know why those need to be remade, and they're not remaking stuff. I mean, I'm sure they will eventually, because we can only see the ones they've planned so far. But like, I feel like it was an opportunity where like you can maybe, you know, do some remakes of some of the ones that didn't end up being as dear to people's hearts, and maybe there was more there to be explored. Like, I've been kind of waiting for them to announce like a Hercules remake, where like I always really liked the Hercules movie, but I feel like that got like crapped on a lot. I've never seen it, but I know a lot of people are fond of like Atlantis, right? And like you would think that would be something that's ripe for like a live action something like that. Seems there's a lot of spectacle to be had in that. I actually thought the idea of Dumbo being remade on paper made a lot of sense to me, because Dumbo was one of my favorite like Disney movies growing up, but I know a lot of people don't care about it because it's really old, like 1940s old. And it's something that can do really well with an update, because because of the time it was made, a bunch of like actually like sort of racist imagery in there, right? That like I was looking forward to, like, oh, like we can keep like the things that are charming and great about Dumbo and the storyline, and get rid of all the stuff that was nasty because it was made in the 1940s and update it. Like, it seemed ripe for an update, whereas like the movies from the 90s, like glory era of like Disney, you know, don't really seem like they need an update as much.
Yeah, it's also, I don't know.
I think anytime you're making a remake of a movie that just, it doesn't seem like it can be made better, that's where just like the cash grab aspect of it becomes so crystal clear. Like, 100%. Disney knows they're not going to make a better Aladdin or a better Lion King, and they're just banking on people recognizing those names and wanting to relive their childhoods.
Well, that's almost what this movie like looks exactly like it's
well, that's
just
what it ends up being. But I thought on paper, like when I heard that they were remaking Dumbo and Tim Burton was doing it, and Michael Keaton's going to be in it and Danny DeVito is going to be in it, like sort of reunited with Tim Burton again, I actually got excited. I was like, man, you have someone who can be a visionary director, is not just going to be Disney's like, you know, plaything, like doing whatever they want him to do for this movie, and he can bring his own flair to it. He's done it already when he did like the Alice in Wonderland remake, you know, like it just it seemed like it made so much sense on paper, right? And then it just didn't turn out to be that. But the other ones to me don't even make a whole lot of sense artistically on paper. They obviously make financial sense on paper, but that's just the part that makes me cringe. So.
Right, those are going to put butts in the seats.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? Where this does seem like it's like a good like one-page pitch, kind of. You know, like somebody has it around a one-pager, and they're like, "Yeah, let's get this moving." Like I pictured the Disney office kind of. They have like a bunch of like kind of tiles of just like every single animated movie, like in order of like how beloved and how successful like each of those movies were, you know, box office, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, kind of like sales and everything, and they have that charted, and you know, Dumbo's somewhere around in there, and and they pass around like a one pager, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, this looks good, but I'm a little confused. But really, I think then you put something longer on paper. And you're kind of like, this first one came out in like what, the
1941
40s, very early 40s, and then it's like also like barely an hour, and then it's like, and then you try to turn it into like this 2-hour thing, and there's also just, I don't know, whoever wrote this they didn't really. I don't know. It's this whole film's kind of a fucking mess. Yeah. And which makes me believe that like did they think this was going to be a success? Because like it's kind of bizarre to put this in the lineup before Lion King and Aladdin come out this year, because if anything's going to dampen, the reputation of these like live action remakes, it's something that doesn't do well and something that's not well received, which is Dumbo.
Yeah, I kind of don't know. I think Dumbo is sort of like far enough down on their list that they're just kind of like, what's an extra one we can throw out there? Like it seemed like
it should have been something for Disney Plus or whatever.
It seemed like it was maybe a little bit of a gamble for them in terms of if Tim Burton is attached, that's enough. Like I don't think they were counting on pull from Dumbo the name alone. I think they were counting on Tim Burton being attached to Dumbo. Like that to me just seems like a genius move on paper. This movie should have been so much better than it was.
Right.
When you put Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton and all of that, and it just seems like, oh, okay, like this is gonna be like a knockout success. And if it doesn't, who cares if we ruin Dumbo? Who cares about like it is pretty low down on the list just because of how long ago it was made. I think the songs that are memorable from Dumbo are only memorable to like certain people. Like I don't know many people that are fans of the songs in Dumbo. I am. I really like a lot of the music in Dumbo, but they're not like, no one's doing the like Elephant Fly song at like Disney karaoke, Like,
right. It is, yeah, and it is like I don't know. It's just Dumbo's such a strange movie. It was just kind of this film that came out like in the midst of like World War II, and I think they made it because like Fantasia or whatever the fuck like didn't do well, and they were kind of like I don't know, let's kind of like throw this out there. And yeah, I don't know, it was definitely something maybe our grandparents showed our parents, and then our parents were like, oh, this is a classic, and it like I don't think it connected at all with like our generation.
No, definitely not for the most part. I don't even know why we watched it as kids. It was just one of the Disney tapes that we had that we like burned out from watching so much.
And then you release it right now and you're like, who's the audience here? It's a little confusing. Like I feel like they kind of mixed up like what is a household name and then like what is beloved, kind of, like kids are obviously still watching The Lion King.
I think they weren't counting on the fans, besides like me being like, oh, like Dumbo is a beloved movie. I think they're counting on like Dumbo with Tim Burton.
Oh right, yeah.
He could either make a stinker like he did, or he could return to form, and Dumbo seems like something that should be right up his alley. Like Tim Burton making a movie about a circus.
Right.
That should work.
They needed
it just clearly doesn't. Yeah.
They needed that Tim Burton clout.
Yeah. But yeah, as we just said, it's directed by Tim Burton, who's got a very long filmography, including Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Ed Wood, Mars Attacks, Sleepy Hollow, Planet of the Apes, Big Fish, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Corpse Bride, Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, Frankenweenie, Big Eyes, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. He didn't direct Nightmare Before Christmas. That's like a little trivia fact that always gets thrown around. I always thought he directed James and the Giant Peach, and he didn't do that either. He's just producer for both of those movies. But yeah, this is actually the first Tim Burton movie we've done on this podcast.
Yeah.
Which is a little surprising just because he's actually been pretty steadily working. Like he has, studios haven't really lost faith in him, I guess, because he's got so much goodwill from the early years through the 2000s even. And then this screenplay was by Aaron Kruger, who has written a bunch. I'll just give some notables here. The Ring, The Ring 2, Scream 3, Reindeer Games, The Skeleton Key, The Brothers Grimm, and then 3 of the Transformers movies. I think it was like 3, 4, and 5, I think.
Which doesn't... Yeah, looking at the writing credits, it doesn't... I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to make a promising Dumbo movie, really.
Yeah, they're kind of like it. I think for a long time, I always like forgot that Tim Burton doesn't write his own movies. Like, and I feel like maybe Disney forgot either, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, Tim Burton's on board." And then like 3 months in, they're like, "Do you have that script?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't write."
Right, yeah.
He's like, I didn't even write Nightmare Before Christmas. I just, sometimes contribute to the story.
Right, yeah.
And they're like, oh shit, who's a good studio writer that we have that we can throw in there?
Yeah. But, you know, this is such a bizarre movie. I'm just kind of like looking through like all the movies you just said, and I feel like this is easily the least Tim Burton movie that Tim Burton has ever directed. It's just so strange. It's so devoid of like any of usual, like the usual flair that he provides like to his movies.
What is your history with Tim Burton?
I mean, almost everything. I mean, I've seen close to everything. Maybe not Alice in Wonderland or the two most recent ones, but I think I've seen just about everything else.
Well, like, what are your feelings about him? Like,
oh, I like him. I think I like him. I think he's like one. You know, if you're kind of like if you were like a kind of film. Like a person who was drawn to film at the age that we were, I think, again, you do kind of appreciate the aesthetic that he brings. You know, he's just kind of like Wes Anderson, where like you're just like, oh, that's Tim Burton. You know, like he has a very obvious aesthetic. And I mean, like, he's also just kind of like this like lovable meme kind of. I remember like there was some sort of like SNL sketch that was on when I was in like high school or something. And somebody was pretending to be Tim Burton, and it was like, oh, right now I'm working on a very haunting rendition of Goodnight Moon. And it was just kind of like, that's funny. Like, you know, it's just kind of like, that, yeah, you can nail like what he is. Like, he's very memeable.
It's like horror cute. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And, yeah. What about you? What is your history with Tim Burton?
Yeah, kind of the same. I think you put it really well. Like, growing up at the time that we did, it was hard not to like just really be all over Tim Burton at that age.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
Like 12, 13, you're like starting to really realize that there are like styles to filmmaking. There's not just movies, and you start to like look deeper in the credits than just the cast, and you start to recognize directors' names. And I remember like really falling in love with like Edward Scissorhands, like, yeah, especially during that like Hot Topic phase of everyone's childhood.
Mars Attacks scared the shit out of me, though.
I remember I never liked Mars Attacks. Even when I liked Tim Burton, I always wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, I've
never gone back to revisit it as an adult, though.
Yeah, same. I got like real fucking weirded out and creeped out by that movie just because I think I was at like an age where I didn't understand the satire element of it. I didn't understand like a lot, and it's just like also a very strange movie, and it was just also like a fucking just weird, ugly aesthetic kind of like. I get it, but I was also kind of like, I don't know, this isn't for me or whatever. Yeah.
I also have like very vivid memories of Ed Wood. Yeah, and it's not necessarily the time that Ed Wood came out, but just like, I remember like Netflix just starting, and it was back when it was like the DVD program. Yeah. That you would get the DVD sent to your house. And I remember it also being like when I first started to like just start browsing IMDb. So I would like be looking up like, oh, like what other movies has Tim Burton done? I like Tim Burton's work. And then just kind of adding them all to my Netflix queue and having that come in and watching them. And I remember very specifically watching Ed Wood on DVD from Netflix and being like, oh, this is like really cool. Tim Burton is now my favorite director.
Right.
After liking like 2 or 3 of his movies at that point. But
no, he's a very good, like entry level kind of director. Yeah. If you want to start, you know, again, especially at that time, he was kind of, he's like middle school, high school, like Wes Anderson, kind of. You know, he's just
like,
kind
I think
of in
before
that
us, like, you would probably look at, like, Steven Spielberg, some people like that. I think our generation, it was, like, M. Night Shyamalan, Tim Burton. Like, those were, like, people where you could distinctly tell the style of their movies. I think for generations after that, you're looking at, like, a Christopher Nolan or probably Wes Anderson after that as well.
Right. Yeah, and it's all about these distinctive directors that, again, you can kind of almost meme, like, you know, whether it's that SNL thing that I just said, or it's just kind of like Robot Chicken with like M. Night Shyamalan, where I'm sure he's cemented in a lot of like kids' heads, or it's kind of like, he's a twist, you know, like it's kind of like, oh yeah, like it becomes like a household name because you know what they do, kind of.
But yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of his like later stuff. Like I probably saw up until, I don't think I actually saw Alice in Wonderland.
No,
and I don't think I actually saw anything after that. So up until Sweeney Todd.
I saw Dark Shadows, but just like jokingly, like, or like I feel like I ironically watched it with friends because I heard it was like horrible, and it is. It's so bad. It's
that
like
was the Johnny Depp vampire one.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very bad. And it's almost worth watching because of how bad it is. I watched Frankenweenie too at some point. I don't remember the context of why or when, but it wasn't bad. But yeah, I feel like Big Eyes and the Miss Peregrine, they existed while we had this podcast and just
did nothing.
Right, yeah, they totally flew under the radar. I don't know. Are those movies making money? I don't know.
I also feel like there's something to be said about like, I don't know how much of it is Tim Burton getting worse as a director. I'm sure there's some of that.
Right.
You know, I think he's probably just lost a little bit of his prime.
Mm-hmm.
But some of it is also just the movie culture just evolving beyond
right
where he was, and him just being kind of a little stuck in that sort of wheelhouse from where he was before.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, ooh, I'm the weird one, and then like, what happens when all movies get weird, and you're kind of like you have like an identity crisis, kind of.
Yeah. So I don't know. I make that point, and then I kind of immediately dash that after saying that, because I think this movie is probably evidence that he has kind of just lost his touch, and it's not just because I think our society probably was ready. Like, I think there's probably a lot of people who felt like I did seeing this trailer being like, Tim Burton doing Dumbo? Hell yeah. Like, I'll go back to Hot Topic. Like,
no, I saw the, again, I don't totally remember a lot of Dumbo. I remember kind of the highlights, kind of. I still am not convinced that I saw it, but I can remember kind of like...
The highlights are kind of... It is a very short movie.
Cultural, like, kind of like highlights of the movie. But seeing this teaser trailer in theaters was like pretty powerful. Like it looked like emotionally powerful. And again, yeah, it's kind of like teaser trailer. Like once they like introduce like the like long form trailer, then I started becoming like a little more hesitant. But it's like a mostly just black trailer with just like words kind of, and then they have the
Baby of Mine.
Yeah, the Baby of Mine, but it's not the version that they have like on the soundtrack. It's not the version that's in this movie. It's like a very kind of synthy, echoey.
Yeah, it's like an Ellie Goulding type sound.
Right. I don't think they have the same vocalist that they do like for the official soundtrack. I think it's like somebody reworked. I don't know. Everything seems to be reworked. They must have finished this film. They must have like reworked a bunch of stuff for like the trailers, because the trailers. I think
they do play the trailer version in the credits, maybe.
Right.
I feel like I heard it as I was walking out.
I think they play some Arcade Fire song during the credits, which is like a real bummer. Which is a real fucking bummer. They've gotten old and have kind of like, I don't know, get paid guys.
Check out our song on the Dumbo soundtrack.
Yeah. They were just kind of like the hot like pitchfork item of like 2012. Now or like even before that, now they're just kind of like, hey guys, we just did the official credit song of Dumbo. Check it out. This is Arcade Fire. But yeah, I don't know. And then by the time you watch, like, that song's actually in this movie, and it's like played by the kind of circus carnies like gathered around a campfire, and one of the women like sings it like on a ukulele, and it's just kind of like it's lost all magic, that song.
I actually kind of like the movie version more than the trailer version.
Oh, okay.
Because the trailer version to me it seemed like it was just part of that whole trend of like, oh, like take like a beloved cutesy song or whatever, or any kind of song and just like slow it down and make it creepy, and that's a trailer song. Like,
yeah, but it was a song that belonged to this movie, though. You know, like
it did, but they made it like airy and creepy and like baby, like where it like it's just kind of like a cute song in the original movie.
But it wasn't
previous
like
guest Evan Vinjamori sent me a trailer for one of like the new Magic the Gathering things on something. I haven't played in a long time, but he was sending me the trailer because they have like a slowed down version of Linkin Park's In the End, where it's like, oh no, dun 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 dun, and then I think they have like a female vocalist like singing something.
I really do hate those. It's just like I know this isn't actually a thing, but it's just like in a world of pure imagination, skyscraper with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. It's just kind of like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Like, it's just like
it's the same thing as like name recognition. It's tune recognition. But this, like people know this song, and
I did appreciate it with this though.
It makes more sense with this.
Right, yeah,
I'm just saying, I think the movie version in this is closer to the original version. It stays true to what made that kind of a classic song.
True. I don't know.
I didn't think the trailer version was that catchy.
It will. If you listen to the soundtrack version, because I wanted to hear like that, I wanted to get those same feels that I did from the teaser trailer, and then I played the kind of sound or the whatever they had on the soundtrack, like on Spotify, and it just sounds like a Zoe Deschanel cover where she plays it with a cutesy ukulele. Like it was just kind of like
I can imagine maybe it doesn't work as well. It was just not outside of the movie,
right? It was just like it was like too stripped down for me. I was like, give me something, man. But yeah, also this movie. I mean, what was the budget for this movie? It was like
170 million.
170 million?
Made 136.5 at the box office.
Yikes!
So when did this come out? This came out March 11th, so last month.
Jeez. This movie doesn't look...
We're recording this on April, 6th?
6th, yeah.
7th, yeah.
This movie doesn't look like that much money either. I think I was saying off mic, it was just like, y'all are spending like way too much time in that fucking tent. I'm getting real sick of that tent.
Yeah.
Let's
jump. Let's Philly Dean. Let's just jump into it.
Let's get into it.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember exactly how this movie opens. Is it just? I guess it's the train scene.
Yeah.
Which kind of just like starts to again. It's like a beloved scene in the original movie because like I think they kind of like anthropomorphize the train and it's like having a hard time getting up the hill, and it's also I almost just wish they would have cut out that scene in this altogether because that's also been always criticized as one of the sort of like racist scenes in the original movie because of the people working on the train. They're drawn and animated in a very kind of like blackface looking type way. It looks like racial caricatures.
Right. I remember.
I just feel like you need to cut all references to that in an updated version of Dumbo. Like I
remember like birds singing like a racist song.
That's the When I See an Elephant Fly song.
Right.
The song's not racist. They sing it in a style that's kind of
nice
like that. It's still a good song. Right, I will defend that song because I don't. Yeah.
But still, in an updated version,
I can't defend the fact that the lead character's name is Jim Crow. That's just not good. But it's a great song. It's iconic in the movie. You know, it's got that whole pun thing going for it. There's nothing racist in the actual music itself. It's just maybe they're all kind of like when the crows are talking amongst themselves. It starts to get into like caricature a little bit. It's not great. I'm fine with they don't need to put that in the updated version.
Right. I remember that Will Smith was in talks to be in this movie for a while, and I was like, nah, like let's just like I don't know. This whole movie, remaking this movie just felt uncomfortable, kind of.
See, it made sense to me because I think there's such a like pure storyline at the heart of Dumbo, like without any of the beauty of the animation or the music or something. There's just this story of a sort of, someone who is different. Like, that's why the whole like Tim Burton thing making this was just like genius. Like,
right.
Who else would make this adaptation? Dumbo is the story of someone who looks different and is kind of able to use that to his advantage. And like what I always liked about Dumbo as a kid, I don't know if I noticed this was why I liked it as a kid, but looking back on it now, what I love is just like the climax of that movie of like Dumbo, like after a whole movie of just being shit on, finally is able to fly. And then he kind of like, he literally spits in the face of the people who like were making fun of him. And now he's the hero. And it's just this great like turn. The climax is great.
Right.
They kind of fuck it over in this movie, and he can fly like pretty much right from the beginning of this movie.
Yeah, he kind of goes through the arc of the first movie twice in this movie. And I mean, just it's like the same fucking story told like twice in a row in this movie. And I feel like it's them being like, I don't know, we got like fucking 2 hours of this movie to like fill out or whatever. So it's like we go through the whole arc of him like, Dumbo's stupid, Dumbo's whatever, Dumbo looks like a fucking idiot. Like, just kind of like, and then like, whoa, he's flying at the circus. And then, and then they do it all over again when they bring him to like the new park. And it's kind of like, Dumbo's stupid, Dumbo's a fucking idiot. Oh my God, he's flying again. Like it's like, he just like, the arc is like, fucking like bunny ears kind of. It's just like it's all over the place. Yeah.
Like they make so many weird decisions. Like I have to put most of the blame on the screenwriters, because I think you have this movie handed to you on a golden fucking platter. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's such a pure movie at the heart of Dumbo, where all you had to do was like make the kids and the family as a story more interesting, since we can't have the talking animals, have that grab our attention. They are like supposed to be mirroring different parts of like Dumbo, like the Colin Farrell's character. He's losing an arm. He's disabled in that way. He sees himself in Dumbo in that way. The, kids see themselves in Dumbo because Dumbo is stripped away from his mother. They see themselves in that way. Like, they didn't really play into that. And like, if you just can make that whole part more interesting, make us really feel for Dumbo, like make it like a real tragedy for like an hour of just like how much people are shitting on Dumbo, and then you just gotta nail the climax, and then we can go home. Like, I don't know why they had to add all this unnecessary stuff to it in terms of...
I almost feel like the animated movie has like this one central kind of like the separation, not that he doesn't get like a little shit, just, I mean, like dumb, like, I was like, as soon as they have that sign, I was like, oh, okay, I see where like it's going to go from Baby Jumbo to Dumbo. Like, now, like, because in the original movie, I feel like it's just like, he's dumb, his name's Dumbo, like, just kind of thing. But like, it's just kind of like, I almost feel like he gets shit on too much in this movie, where like he goes through so much turmoil, where in like the original movie, I feel like they really hone in on like the mother-son separation, and I feel like
they
that's
do. But
enough.
in the original movie, there's also the...
I feel like that's enough to drive.
He trips over his ears. He's the one that causes the entire tent thing.
Right.
And that one, it's caused because all the elephants are on like the pyramid and they go toppling. And then in the original movie, all the animals can talk, so all the animals are shitting on him, like, you fucking ruined everything. There's the one, I forget what they call the elephant in the original movie, but there's like the one like lead elephant who's not Dumbo's mother, who is like very like condescending to Dumbo and disapproving of him, and he's got a bunch of other elephant kid friends, not friends but peers as well, that are shitting on him. In this, it's like less convincing because it's all humans, and it's like, well, can he even understand them? Like...
Yeah, they really go through. Oh man, it's like so confusing because it's just, there are like sometimes where like Dumbo like will, or like even like the other elephants will like react kind of like directly to somebody like who is just like, Dumbo's fucking stupid, and Dumbo will be like, like kind of, and it's like, well, wait, what? And then other times, like, it'll be like, oh, aren't humans so stupid? Because the humans will be like, yo, Dumbo's fucking stupid. And Dumbo will still have, like, a smile on his face and be like, I just don't understand that because I'm an animal. And that's just, like, on another level. But it's just kind of like, well, pick one. Stick with it, like, kind of thing. And I understand, like, body language and everything, but it really blurred the lines of that.
Well, they're kind of like saddling between the line between like that and like, I feel like in the beginning they start trying to get into like animal cruelty.
Oh god.
Which I mean, I think they should have just picked one. Like it's either Dumbo understands or we shouldn't be cruel to animals. Like because like the animal cruelty one makes more sense for like a live action adaptation because Dumbo doesn't have peers that are making fun of him and he shouldn't be able to understand humans, and there's no other animals that are like cognizant in the movie. Like they have the rats in the uniforms, but like we don't explore the troubles of like the alligator or the bear or the stuff that are in like the nightmare house or whatever that thing is called later on. Like I sort of got it because, and then they had like that one villain character that they killed off so fucking early in this movie.
Oh my god.
Like before it was even really a payoff.
He causes one conflict and he's dead. You say one bad thing about Dumbo and you're fucking
but like he's like pushing like the mother elephant and being like cruel to her, and like I feel like they could have kept him around for a long time, and I don't know that he necessarily needed to die, but if you're gonna kill him off at the end of the movie.
Right, yeah. I will go in, I mean, I could probably find something like an aspect wrong with this movie, with just in every aspect. Like I could find something wrong with every aspect of this movie. However, I felt for Dumbo every fucking second of this movie. There's something, you know, I don't think Dumbo looks like $170 million, you know, but there's something with the kind of like the auditory or like just like the way that he like moans or whatever, and it's just, and those big fucking eyes that I felt like it definitely gave me some sort of feeling. And I can't say that about a lot of like, there's some like really bad movies out there and it's just like, I feel nothing. But like maybe even like a lot of these like kind of cheap, like these cheap emotional ploys, like it feels like it has to like stand for something kind of like it's, if they nail like, God, like those child actors are some of the worst child actors.
Dude, watching this, I was like, we've been on such a good run of like, my God, there's some talented kids out there. There's almost like no excuse to have bad kid actors in movies anymore.
Right, these kids
I don't
are
know if
so
part of it
bad.
is because I think a lot of times movies tend to cast locally for kids because they don't want kids to be like living far away from where they actually live. But I don't know. These kids are bad.
These kids are bad. But yeah, I don't know. I just, this film did give me some sort of just like emotional reaction. I felt like weird after this movie. And I think it's just literally because the fucking like Dumbo, like animation and audio. I was just like, oh man, like it kind of like let me look through a keyhole of like what could have been like a very emotional movie where it was just kind of like,
what I'm talking about. Where I'm saying
Edward Scissorhands except with an elephant.
There's something pure at the heart of the Dumbo storyline that I think it makes this movie even worse. The fact that they really couldn't like bring that home, right? Because you have this kind of like given there. Like Dumbo is kind of one of the original like underdog stories as far as I'm concerned. Like that's what makes Dumbo work, is that
he's inherently sympathetic.
Yes.
Is like, it doesn't matter what he looks like. And I mean, I think they're doing a really great job, like the animators and like whoever came up with this Dumbo concept. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. And also this movie is also just, I was like, this episode isn't going to be long because this is just one of those movies that's just like, it's not like terrible and it's not great. It's just somewhere in like the middle of bad, where it's just almost boring to talk about. Like, you know, it's just kind of like, I don't know.
I think the first half is real bad. I think the second half, it started to pick up a little bit.
Okay.
Like, did you feel opposite, or?
I couldn't pinpoint it. I felt real weird when Colin Farrell's character first walked onto screen, and like the missing arm thing, I almost thought was going to be like a poor taste joke. Where he's like, psych, I got my fucking arm in my shirt or something. I was like, oh, Tim Burton's about to pull some like weird shit or something. Or Tim Burton would embrace something like this. But yeah, then he goes the rest of the thing. I mean, which I don't.
They kind of really do anything with it.
They don't.
It seems like, again, it seems like a given. Like, it seems like maybe a smart choice as a setup by this writer, but then he doesn't really know how to follow through with, like, Colin Farrell needs to have a scene individually where he really connects with Dumbo over that, right? That seems a given.
Well, yeah, and again, there are these like moments where you're kind of like, oh, they're gonna do something with this, and it's just kind of like I start to really feel something where like Dumbo, or I think he's trying to control Dumbo, or he has like a moment with Dumbo where Dumbo starts like pulling that fake arm, like he tries to pull it off of him, and it's just kind of like, hey, you and me, we have like these like weird things about us, and you don't need this, like this fake arm. He's pulling it, and he's like, oh, stop it, Dumbo. And I was like, lean into that.
Yeah.
Like that's so heartbreaking. I think
another part of the problem with this movie is that they're not willing to commit to like any like real like not pure good or pure evil, but like they don't put anyone like too far at the either end of the spectrum besides like the kids, like who are just obviously going to be innocent and good and pure and whatever. But like the Danny DeVito character, like I think they made him too likable.
Yeah.
I wanted him to kind of be like more of like a money scoundrel type person. Like I wanted him to be more about profit, and you know, like if he wants to have a good moment at the end, then that becomes more rewarding. Whereas like where he's been kind of this nice person, you know, like to have him like talking nicely about their mother, and I don't know, that is just a weird choice for me. I think what they were trying to do was paint this circus in a different light as opposed to Michael Keaton's circus. But I think you can still have shades within there. Like, you know, he can still be a hard man running a business.
At the end.
But in the end, he's not willing to sell his soul, even if he still wants to make a little bit more money. And then even with like the Michael Keaton character, like I kept waiting for there to be something like really devious about him, but he just seemed like he was really on the surface. Like he did seem like he did really have like, you know, ideas about just putting on a great show and whatnot. And it didn't seem to as much be about the money for him. And I was just waiting for him to be like two-faced. Like I wanted him to be someone who was like immediately like likable. And then we kind of keep seeing these like darker sides. And then the climax is him like really showing his like true side and it feeling like a betrayal. Rather than him just kind of on the surface just being like, yeah, I want to buy Dumbo because I want to put him in my show and blah, blah, blah. Like it just didn't seem like there was really a twist or a betrayal, or he didn't seem two-faced at all. He was just kind of, he was a character somewhere on that spectrum, not even too far to like the evil side.
Right. I feel like they also could have really done more with the whole like no net during like safety net during the Dumbo's thing, or the Eva Green and Dumbo like stunt or whatever. But like it was just like all the characters seemed to be like clued into like no net, and it's like, you know what that means, but there was no logical explanation of like Michael Keaton being like, no, like people don't want the it just it didn't seem
used
logical.
A scene before where they used the net and someone said something.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of like, oh well, I thought this was pure magic or whatever. You know, it was just it seemed, I don't know, again, it didn't totally make sense. You were kind of like, where's that character coming from all of a sudden with
And then I also thought with like the Colin Farrell character, like I thought there was an opportunity there to make him like a really hard, strict, cruel father, hardened by war, come back, he's missing something, he's lost his job, his wife's died, like everything's changed. He should have been a real asshole. And he was kind of just like a slightly likable person that was a little bit less than warm at times. And like, I think if you make him like a real asshole to the kids, and he's really cruel, and he's kind of like, like life's not all fun and games like it is here in the circus. Like, I just came back from fucking Normandy and I don't have my arm, and I left with the wife and I come back and she's dead from whatever. Like, he should be a lot more just weathered and, hard to connect with. He's lost much more of himself. He seems like he comes back and he's just kind of ready to live life like he was before. And I think if you make him like more cruel and more mean like that, then if he has a turn where he maybe connects with Dumbo and he's like, oh yeah, like maybe my disability is something that I can use to my advantage in some way, or maybe I'm bigger than the way that people see me for my physical disability. Like, if he has a connection like that, then when he connects with Dumbo, that is so much more impactful, because Dumbo converted someone from sort of the bad half of the spectrum to the good half, rather than all these people who are kind of on the good half of the spectrum already being like, we got to save Dumbo. Like, you need to convert someone in this movie.
I'm so glad, like, I just randomly remembered this. There's two different like elements of this. One I forget, but there's one when he first returns to the local circus, or the circus, Colin Farrell, and they're putting on their first show, and he has a fake mustache on, and then those the two guys in the crowd are like, hey, aren't you so-and-so? And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And he kind of like sideways glances, and he's like, that man died in the war. And they're like, huh, weird, you look just like him. And then he kind of like walks off, and I was like, oh, this is about to be some real like weird like Don Draper, Dick Whitman thing. Like, I was just like, I was so interested. And then there was like something else that was like a really like weird thing about like him like, oh, don't call me like Captain. And he's like, just call me like whatever.
Holt, yeah.
He's like, just call me Holt. And like one guy like pauses, and he's like, that's weird. I thought you were a military man. And he's like, oh no, I am. I'm a military man. And I was like, what's going on here? And then they never fucking go back to that. What was that about? Was that something that like they just fucking completely abandoned? I was so interested in that storyline.
I think it was more him being this big shot before he left, and he's been kind of humbled coming back after the war, but they didn't explore it really in the right way. Because I think when he's in the ring and they recognize him, he doesn't want to be tarnish the image that he left people with of, oh, like Holt Farrier, the amazing guy who rode the horses and did all the circus tricks. Like, he doesn't want them to be like, oh, he's the guy with no arm and a mustache who's leading the elephant around. Like, right. Yeah. He's embarrassed of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know about the scene with the captain thing. That was weird. That was kind of, I didn't see a sinister side to it or a mysterious side. Because I think it was earlier in the film and I didn't know his character yet, and it just seemed like he was just trying to be more down to earth. Like, oh, you don't have to call me Captain, I'm Holt.
Right.
Either that, or it was just kind of like, I'm home from the war, I don't want to think about the military anymore.
Right.
I don't need to be referred to as Captain.
And I do like the scene where Michael Keaton kind of has that presentation of just kind of like, he sees right through the Colin Farrell character, and they kind of just like make up like a poster of like, or make up like a sign of him that's kind of like, oh, he's the like, war hero, and he's, it's the horse trick that you like want to continue doing, like, now that you're back from the war. It's just kind of like selling everybody on I liked that element of it.
I thought there was more to be explored there too,
most definitely.
Because like I think that's a good setup for a way that you can take the story where, again, like I wanted some of these characters to go in bad directions so that when they either come back to good or stay evil, it's satisfying for us. So like I thought you set that up, and he, we've already established that he like misses that part of his old life. He wants to just go back to his old life. Here's this guy who's like, oh, you can be this star again. You can be the one-armed guy who does whatever.
War hero. Right.
I feel like you could just as easily tie that to like, oh, and you got to lasso Dumbo now out of the sky or whatever. And it's some like trick like that. Something that ties into like animal cruelty, and he buys into it because he misses his old life. Mm-hmm. And then we can have a conversion moment where he's like, I can't do this to Dumbo. Like, Dumbo's me. And
right. Or just,
they needed to put people in morally ambiguous or precarious circumstances so that we could learn who those people truly are.
Right. He was just he was too sympathetic and too reasonable, like during the training of Dumbo, like for the new...
He was too likable. Sometimes you need to make your characters jerks so that when they come around, we like them even more.
Mm-hmm. And what is the Dreamland or
Dreamland? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So when he's like preparing Dumbo, when he's like the elephant trainer for Dumbo for Dreamland or whatever, it's just after he is presented, kind of, whoa, my gosh, I could be beyond my wildest dreams, like doing this act that I used to do and everything, and then him going, and then what's it called? Michael Keaton being like, yeah, and we can do that for you, but first you got to train Dumbo or whatever, like he said. But it's like like more logically, Colin Farrell would kind of like go back to this, the training Dumbo or whatever, and be like, we got to get this done for Mr. Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Because,
be a real coach.
He's the man in charge around here. And like, I don't care. Like, if you kids think he's doing something more sinister than he is, he's promised this family a lot. And like, there's really so many like pretty cliche beats that could have really worked that like they completely ignored, where it was just kind of like, hey man, well, I don't think Dumbo's going to be ready in like a week, or he's just like, he's too reasonable, like he should have been the one who said, yes, Mr. Michael Keaton, Dumbo will be ready in a week, and then he puts Dumbo in danger.
It's like, it's not even like the writers made a choice between like, cliche or like bold. Mm-hmm. They just like were faced with these choices and didn't make a choice, and that's even worse. Like, right. To make a movie that doesn't try anything and also doesn't hit like the cliche beats that could make a workable movie, like could have made this an average, or like I think if you made an quote unquote average cliche movie hitting all the cliche beats with this, right, you can end up with an above average movie because of how pure the storyline is inherently, and how much sympathy there is for Dumbo, and just some of like the natural music and design of the characters in the story from the original movie. There's just so much that you can kind of soar on if you just make like a really just basic ABC plot to this movie instead of kind of jumping all over the place. It really baffles me that like a professional screenwriter wrote the screenplay to this movie when I feel like anybody in college could write a workable screenplay to this movie.
Right. I who fucking knows what's going on at Disney either. I mean, again, like I said, like how I like kind of picture a lot of like Marvel movies kind of being written, where it's just kind of like a bunch of like suits and ad men and people who have Disney's best interest in mind, like kind of like working this script. It's kind of like, that's what I picture for Dumbo. And it's just, that's what I picture in the editing room, where it's just kind of like, all right, Tim Burton, be a good company man. You're getting your fucking money because we've got all the money in the world. Now, like, be a good company man and do what we say, kind of. It's kind of like, I think they just did like some King Arthur movie or Disney where it was like Guy Ritchie, and like, it doesn't look like a Guy Ritchie movie at all. And I think, what's it called? People have talked about how like Aladdin is also a Guy Ritchie movie. It doesn't look like a Guy Ritchie movie at all. It's just kind of like Disney is kind of like clout chasing with like these like directors, where they're kind of like, ooh, directed by Guy Ritchie, Tim Burton, Jon Favreau, and it's kind of like, oh, but it looks
it's
fucking
just Disney, yeah.
Right, yeah, it's just directed by Disney.
But it's a little weird because I feel like they let him be Tim Burton in Alice in Wonderland.
Right, yeah. But maybe that was before they had the pipeline in place, before they really like knew what they wanted to do,
before it really became a machine.
Right.
That was like 2010.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Disney's been around forever, but I guess there's now this aspect of Disney Studio system that's just pumping out these live action ones.
Yeah, it just stinks. I feel like Disney used to be just like, no, I mean, when we were kind of, I mean, to talk about like when we were talking about Tim Burton and our age and everything, I mean, and we've talked about this, like, I think maybe during the live action Beauty and the Beast, but it was just kind of like, man, like we were like children watching children's movies during the golden age of like Disney 2D animation. Like it was really just some like fucking magic they were like putting out. And it was all like very original. Like they were creating classics like out of like thin air kind of. And it's just so depressing kind of to just kind of see them like going for these weird cash grabs and everything. It's just like but
then also failing to capture like even a derivative version of the magic from the original.
I just wish they would like kind of, you know, with all the money that they made this movie with, they could be like creating like new properties by, you know, like where's the Disney like indie imprint like studio kind of that's like they give like $10 million to like a bunch of like, you know, studios or whatever, and it's
I mean, I guess the one thing
filmmakers.
You could say is that like Pixar is still doing for the most part original stuff when they're not focused on doing the sequels to Pixar movies,
which they've been doing. Like
they have been doing, yeah. But I mean, they did like Coco, or was that Disney?
No, that was Pixar.
Yeah, so they did Coco,
yeah,
and that was completely original. And like, I mean, Pixar has kind of picked up where Disney's like magic left off. Then we got into the classics of like Finding Nemo, and I mean, Toy Story was still Disney when Pixar did it back then, but like this sort of like 3D animation, like kids grew up with a bunch of classics the same way that we did with 2D. They just did it with some of the 3D movies.
Right.
But I just sort of wonder about, now.
I don't know. It's just like if they want to step into live action, it's just like so confusing why they're not like, hey, we've been sitting on this like sci-fi like script for a while. Why don't we like try our hand at this? Or again.
I mean, they've made live action movies for a long time too. That's the other troubling thing. It's like there are some classic live action Disney movies. I mean, a lot of them were like some of the sports movies and stuff. But like,
but just divvy up like $10 million to promising young directors. You might get fucking like Back to the Future or something out of one of those. You know, like it's just like you guys could make your own property, like new like properties instead of like. Which is so funny because Dreamland
it is weird. Like to throw $200 million at these, like, I mean, Dumbo is one that's gonna barely make its money back. I mean, I'm sure in the long run it'll eventually turn profitable just from merchandise and stuff they sell at the parks and DVD sales.
Again,
and
this is
people signing up for Disney's whatever their Netflix thing is. In the end, Disney really just needs to put out content because now everything is going to switch over to Disney Digital, whatever that thing is called. But yeah, I can also see like a business model that should be kind of taking a bunch of smaller priced gambles, and one of them pays off. You know, kind of like Blumhouse does, where they're like, let's throw $20 at us, and whoops, it made $200 million at the box office. You know, You kind of got to like throw your bets out in that way.
Yeah.
There's so much about this movie where like even getting it removed from the original and like you look at this live action version and like it's so baffling to me that they couldn't create like one like memorable original like circus character in the like supporting cast of this movie.
Oh my
like,
gosh, yeah.
None of them have any relationship to the kids in any scene. Like it's an understood relationship just because the kids have grown up in the circus, but like none of them talk to the kids at any point or comfort the kids about anything. We don't know any of the names of these people in the supporting cast of the circus. And like, I think that just shows a really shitty screenwriter when you like that's handed to you. Like, write a funny original character who is a character in a circus. Like, you can go in a million different directions.
Right.
The world is your fucking oyster at that point. And to just make a bunch of like boring characters that are nameless and there's nothing memorable about any of them, really. Like,
I don't even really like Danny DeVito's performance in this movie.
No, I remember watching him and being like, man, really? It's Always Sunny is the like greatest role of his career.
Yeah.
Now he just kind of seems old and like, I don't know. Like, It's Always Sunny is just perfect for him because he can really play into just like his creepy weirdness, and this, yeah, it just doesn't fully work. It could have worked, I think, more if they made him more of a villain in this movie. You know, like
right, yeah,
leaned more into like the Danny DeVito in like what's the movie? I want to say Madeline, but that's not it. But it's the same sort of like era.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? The one with like the fat kid being forced to eat cake. It's like a 90s kids movie.
Yeah, that's Matilda.
Matilda, there we go.
Oh yeah, Madeline's the
girl with the hat, yeah.
Yeah.
Matilda, he's like the villain, he's the bad stepfather in Matilda.
Right,
He's better when he like leans into these characters. Rather than being like a little, they wrote him a little like too down the middle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also felt like they had nothing to work on. Like, the soundtrack is like good in like the climax of this movie, but like there's other parts where like it just needed something underneath, because like he'll like deliver these like sort of weakly written punchlines, and there's like nothing. There's like, metaphorically speaking, no net to catch him underneath. So he'll just kind of like yell a punchline about the monkey, and then there's dead silence in the theater, and you're like, oh, I feel that one in my heart. How hard that fell on its face. Oh, man. If only there was some kind of like plucky score underneath this to just keep it moving, cover up this silence.
Just like I didn't even notice like anything that great about the score, and it's like Danny Elfman doing a circus score. I was like, there should have been like, I feel like it should have been more memorable. But just that just seems so right up his alley. Yeah, you know.
Well, I feel like they didn't do a lot of it until like the climax, and then there's a lot of score going on, and it starts to tie into like some of the more typical Danny Elfman themes. I do feel like he kind of dialed it in, but
definitely.
Danny Elfman dialing it in still makes a like aesthetically positive score.
Right. Just kind of, was Tim Burton even on set? Was it like just a bunch of men in suits?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the thing. Like, there was like this whole idea of like Tim Burton's aesthetic in his like early years, where you could just, man, he's this visionary director. Like, you can't really call him that after watching Dumbo. Like, he's clearly just been like, yeah, I'll show up and I'll tell the cameraman where to point the camera, and I'll like maybe tell Colin Farrell something about his acting, but probably not, because his accent's really goofy in this. And also he has a really thick accent, but his kids don't have any accent at all. Yeah. Go get him, Big D.
Oh, that was the most awkward line in this fucking movie.
It's in the trailer at one point too.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. Oh, just like, let's get ready to Dumbo.
Oh my god! I think that was when this movie became like comically bad.
Oh, I started hearing that in the promo material. Like,
I missed that in the promos.
They would play that on like radio commercials, and I was like, that can't be in the movie, right? Like,
and it's the actual guy. What is his name? I looked him up before we started. Michael Buffer.
Yeah.
So he was like, for the boxing, he was like a professional announcer, and he ended up trademarking that phrase, "Let's get ready to rumble."
Right.
Which is, I think, why he's in this movie, because for some reason somebody either on the production staff or in the writing room helping out Aaron, I guess, or just Aaron Kruger himself, thought that would be a really funny thing for an announcer to say, "Let's get ready for Dumbo." But they can't say anything remotely similar to that without getting sued. That's really like how he makes his profession now, is just suing people who use that phrase, and I guess being paid to say it because he's the only one who can say it. But it doesn't make any sense, because he was born like after this movie takes place. Mm-hmm. So that phrase, which is a real phrase from American like pop culture, didn't exist until like almost a century after this movie takes place. So it's like a reference to something that it just makes no sense. And it's not even like the real line, like, "Let's get ready for Dumbo." Like, he invented that style of announcing. That's why he's famous. Mm-hmm. So why would they put him in a movie in the 1920s? Like, they didn't have announcers like that. But it's so mind-boggling.
It is.
It was so cringy watching it. I mean, I'm glad they put it in, because it gave me something to laugh at.
Right, yeah.
In the middle of this boring movie.
Man, and then... Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to talk about, like, Dreamland was such a strange, like, it was kind of like this steampunk, like, Disney World. I mean, even though I know it was like Coney Island or whatever, but it was just such a strange, like, him and or that, and then like Michael Keaton was kind of like this Disney-esque character.
It kind of felt like they were setting up a new park that they're going to open at Disney World.
Oh, really? Yeah. To me, it felt like...
It seemed like an Epcot park that's going to... If the movie did really well, they'd be like, all right, let's open up Dreamland.
Right. To me, it felt like some weird kind of like, hey, let's like switch up the narrative to like where like, I don't know, Dumbo and this circus is like the the underdog, and like bizarrely like Disney World is I don't know, like the bad guy, but like to kind of like distract you from like the idea that like Disney World actually is like that place.
Yeah.
That's like buying up all these like properties and everything. And it was even just weird just like watching like, they had like the actual like Dumbo like plushies, like, like in the stands or stores.
I didn't even see that.
Oh, it was so like bizarre. I was just kind of like, whoa. What is the thought process behind all of this? Like,
it's a weird self-burn Disney.
Yeah, it just felt like we can't be the bad guy if we're making a movie about a bad guy that's us. Like, it was just like such like a roundabout fucking weird thing to do. I don't know.
I was gonna say that I feel like the first half of this movie like really shows the budget, or what I thought let me rephrase that. Watching the first half of this movie, I was like, man, they must not have a big budget for this movie, because it looks kind of awful in the first half. Like a lot of it, like it's like Tim Burton like trying to be like quote unquote like visionary, like this scene needs to take place at dusk, but we can't really shoot at dusk, so everything's gonna be shot on green screen, even though they're fucking outside in a field in like Missouri or wherever it is. And it looked real bad and not really well pulled off. And then when they start to get towards like the end of the movie, then you're like, oh, here's where they poured $170 million of this movie in. Like, I think Dreamland does look impressive.
Oh, definitely.
And looks like every bit worth the money. I think like you even have some like good visuals, even though it's a really weird fucking scene. The pink elephants scene.
Oh man, I was like laughing so hard during that scene.
Went on way too long. It should have just been a quick reference.
But also just like Dumbo
being
like bobbing to the music, and like that was definitely a reference to
We're gonna take a quick pause to make sure my computer doesn't die.
And we're back.
Hopefully.
Oh my gosh. Mike
I spilled a little beer on my computer, which is surprisingly the first time I've done that in all the time we've had this podcast.
Mike went full Rona season. Call back to the Us episode.
And I was also making a joke that the podcast might be ending a little bit sooner than we thought.
One time I was just like fucking with Sabri.
Oh, you've told this before
on
the podcast.
Oh, okay, yeah. Where I was just like, pretending to spill a beer, and then I did. Right on her laptop.
And you ruined it too, didn't you?
It was fine.
Oh,
it ended up being fine. Because, again, we did what you just did. Turned it upside down and everything. But just to pick up where we left off, that was a real... I got, like, it was funny, but I think I just enjoyed Dumbo so much that I was like, I'm just, like, so caught up in just, what a weird scene. Like, maybe if it was like a better movie, I would have like been like, oh, okay, this scene's weird, but like I like it kind of thing. Instead, it's just kind of like a funny scene in the midst of a boring movie, kind of.
It's just strange because I think
it's a strange choice in a sea of safe choices.
It's strange that it goes on too long. It's strange that there's literally only two shots. There's one angle looking at this like beautiful like dance of bubble elephants going on, but we only have one angle looking at it, and then we just keep cutting back from that to looking at Dumbo being like
to like dancing a little too.
Like that's fine for a little bit, but like it goes on for like the full length of like the song, and there's not much changing with the bubbles. It just keeps showing different elephant shapes, but like I don't know, I feel like you got to cut that out to like 30 seconds at most.
Yeah, definitely.
It was like 2 minutes.
Because
it's not even like
fully
it'd
enjoyed
be one
it,
thing.
though, right,
It'd be
yeah.
one thing if they like fully dove into what the original point of that scene was,
Where
like
Dumbo's drunk.
Dumbo getting drunk on champagne and like hallucinating these elephants. But if it's just going to be a reference, we don't need 2 minutes. Like it's not even like it's a song that they're doing with words. We're just hearing like the, kind of score from that scene.
I wish Dumbo was drunk.
I wish he was too.
That scene would have made so much more sense. And like Tim Burton, like if he showed up to set, could have like actually made like a really like great scene of something like that.
Yeah.
Just weird.
That was
weird
part of the
shit.
stuff.
Right,
like
yeah.
when you think about Dumbo and then you add Tim Burton into the equation, you're like, oh, I can't wait for the pink elephant scene.
Right.
And then it's just Dumbo going, and then a bunch of like bubble elephants from one angle,
right.
one color, one lighting scheme.
Yeah. It's
Like
still
it literally seems like they just set the camera up. I don't even know if they did. They might have just animated the background as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then we're just like, all right, animators, do your thing. And I don't think Tim Burton showed up to the animators room one day.
Right. Yeah. Still,
you know how they look in the original. All right, just do what they do in the original. All right, cool. I'll see you guys in 30 days.
right. Still, one of the better scenes of this film, in my opinion. I like it a lot. It works for me, in my opinion, but bizarre.
Yeah.
Again, a weird choice that is welcomed by me, but again, in a sea of safe choices, doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. But I think I was trying to get into how I feel like the second half of this movie starts to look more worth the money and just, I think, starts to be a better movie in the second half of it. Like, I'm not really feeling much besides just kind of the built-in, like, oh, Dumbo's cute and I feel sympathy for him in the first half. I don't care about the kids. I don't care about their relationship to Colin Farrell. I don't care about
any
this,
of the
this
humans
weird.
really.
I don't care about this weird
yeah.
family aspect that they go on. But I do start to get into it when they like all rally around like, yeah, no, we got fired, but we're gonna go balls out to save Dumbo. Like if we can do one thing, it's to get Dumbo back with his mother. Like I can kind of buy into that. I think that's good climax material for a movie. Yeah, I don't know. It starts working there. Like the score is starting to build there. I think the visuals start to look better, but it also ends up getting hindered by the first half of the movie, where like Dumbo flying in the climax of that scene is not really meaningful because we already saw him do that in the first one and had this whole storyline built around that.
Right. This is like climax part 2, or just like the second time we've seen. You're watching the same movie twice. So,
and they could have handled that itself better. Like they have like shots in the trailer, the way that it's cut in the trailer of like Michael Keaton like in awe of like Dumbo flying. And I remember watching that and be like, oh, I can't wait for that, for like this who looks like he's going to be like this like tycoon character to just be like humiliated because this thing he's been shitting on the whole time turns out to be great on its own, and it just didn't really have that effect in the climax. I thought more of it just worked with like I liked Dumbo saving the day. That was kind of a nice twist that I wasn't expecting because it's not at all evident in the original. That was an actual nice addition to this, like the family being trapped and Dumbo being like, oh, I know how to put out fires. I did that in the first part of this movie.
Yeah.
So that kind of worked. Dumbo like flying. What's her face? Eva Green. Kind of worked. But at the same time, I feel like sometimes we just needed better. Like the characters needed to be more in the moment. Like I felt like I wanted more from Eva Green. Like that should be like a cinema magic moment. Like Dumbo like bursting out of the circus, like he's flying, and now he can just fly wherever he wants, and she's riding him flying across like the city. Like I just wanted like, just give me like 10 seconds on her face, like, wow, I'm fucking flying. It's 1920. I can't even fly in like an airplane at this point, and I'm flying above everything and it looks beautiful. Like just give me some wonder like in that scene. Not there. I was also a little confused on the whole, like, I guess they were just going back to India with the one Indian character on the, like, that, the logistics.
It seemed like they were getting on the boat by themselves.
The logistics of that was weird. Like, in the 1920s where they're just like, yeah, just give us your fucking elephants. We'll take them to India.
Right.
We'll drop them off. Like,
or China or whatever.
Nobody had to pay for anything. Nobody had to watch the elephants in the hole.
Yeah. It's just you're putting 2 elephants on a boat and like, this is what you want. Bye. It's just
no chains, no cages, no.
Yeah, it was just strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to get into some fingers?
Yes, certainly. Let me get the Rotten Tomatoes.
And part of me did like the Eva Green. Again, there was something to Eva Green because it was just kind of like the what's it called? The Michael Keaton character was just kind of like, oh, he saw me in France and I was a street performer, and she even had some sort of connection to Dumbo too, and that was just like wasted. Okay. Yeah, just like every other character who had a connection to him.
I thought she was presented kind of weird, where I thought she was supposed to be a villain.
Same, yeah.
I think it's just her accent.
Yeah.
It's maybe just a little bit of our American like xenophobia, like, oh, she's got the French accent, she's evil.
Right, yeah.
On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 47% based on 310 reviews, with an average rating of 5.53 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, Dumbo is held partly aloft by Tim Burton's visual flair, but a crowded canvas and overstretched story leave this live-action remake more workmanlike than wondrous. I'd say that's pretty apt.
Yeah.
I guess I can start. I don't really know where I'm going to land numerically.
Okay.
But I know my opinion of the movie.
Yeah. I've pretty much laid everything out already.
Yeah, kind of just like the point that I've been harping on this whole thing. I think this movie was given so much and did so little with it. Like I feel like this was a script, like I said, like you could have just like given a college kid a copy of Sid Field and been like, hey man, like, right, this movie, it's all there. All you got to do is just invent a couple of new human characters, since we can't have the animals talking, and then just keep all the beats from the original and stretch it out through the human interactions with Dumbo. Easy peasy. Right. You got it. And they just didn't hit like any of the points besides just the inherent built-in sympathy for Dumbo. And if you're not going to do that, you would at least hope that this movie would have the built-in Tim Burton just visual style, make things look weird and crazy and kooky and like creepy cute. Didn't really do that either, so it like fails on that front. So I think I hold this movie to a little bit of a higher rubric, just based on what it's given and who's involved and them not living up to their full potential. That being said, the first half I think really sucks. I did feel some things during the climax in the second half. So definitely a subpar movie. I don't want to put it completely near the bottom of the barrel. I think I'll go with 1.5.
Right.
I want to go with 1, but I definitely felt some stuff towards the end of the movie, and Dumbo's really cute, and it had an effect. Like I came home and like hugged my cats because I was like, oh, animals are precious.
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely gives off some sort of like baby or animal kind of helplessness that you want to. There has to be some sort of constellation for that. No, I would say ditto to almost everything you've said. And I feel like I've said almost everything. This film, while bad, is not as bad as maybe, say, Christopher Robin, which was completely just terrible. I wish I gave that a lower score than whatever I gave it. I don't even know what I gave it, but I hope I gave it a lower score than I'm thinking. I think I'm going to also land on 1.5 fingers. I don't have a whole lot to offer. Just because I've pretty much said everything. And I feel like you summed it up pretty well.
Riding on my coattails.
That's what I do best.
Just like Disney riding on the coattails of movies it's already made.
Past success, yes.
So obviously we'll just stick with a 1.5 for us here total at the podcast. That's about it. hopefully my computer doesn't die before I get a chance to upload these audio files and make this into an actual episode that you're listening to. Check out a review of Us 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure what we're doing in 2 weeks. Shazam or Pet Sematary, or I don't even know, maybe Endgame's out by then. I don't know.
I think Endgame
might be
the
out.
next movie. Yeah.
We're in the end game now of this podcast. And sort of echoing our sentiment from last week, check out our merch store, howmanyfingerspodcast.bigcartel.com. We're going to have some sales on all the merch there. Pick it up while it's there, while supplies last. Try to get that merch out the door for you guys. And stay tuned.
Yeah.
Signing out for How Many Fingers a Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Joe.
And let's get ready for Dumbo.